Hey, Fletcher, before you get started, because look, you were ready, bro. You were ready.
I
You always
was.
get this thing started. I'm going to change it up today. I just got this report from the team. I find it very interesting. You know what it's showing here is that a good portion of our membership is showing that they're actively unsubscribed from our videos that we circulate on the various platforms by which they consume this content. I
Whatever
know it's
for.
happened to me where I'm suddenly unsubscribed from this or that on YouTube or in Spotify. So here's my ask. I don't ask much from the membership. This is a piece of content that we obviously put a lot of time and effort into creating for you guys monthly, and we do so at no charge. But here's my ask. Go right now, jump to wherever you're watching this video and see to it that you are subscribed. This way it shows up more prominently in your feed and it helps us distribute the good word about what's going on with the Xactimate published price list. It's in nobody's best interest for restorers, carriers, IAs, TPAs to misunderstand what's coming out from the Xactware pricing department. And so it's our job, as we see it, Fletcher, to try to clarify that. And all I'm asking from you guys as membership and as prospects is to just subscribe. So that way you stay perfectly abreast of what the heck is going on with these 17,500 structural line items. Over to you, Fletcher.
Yeah, and 17,500, but 27 new line items just this month. So, well worth subscribing to keep up with this. Plus, you get to see these two faces on a monthly basis. I mean, that's a win in my book. But
Could be
what do you say
biased.
what do you say we check out the new line items?
Let's check them out.
New line items. Check them out. All right, first we got two new line items in the ELE category. One for an intersystem bonding bridge. Whatley, what the heck is an intersystem bonding bridge?
So it turns out when you're dealing with low voltage, and this is becoming more and more important. This was less important for like coaxial and stuff, but if you're moving to like Cat 6, if you're doing this in an institutional way, most of the low voltage products, they require a grounding component. And this intersystem bonding bridge creates space for your low voltage system to tap into the ground associated with your more traditional panel.
Right. And that's what it is. It's a good thing to learn if you haven't used it before. And I mean, I think with all of the updates a lot of homes now have, you're going to run into this a lot more in the restoration environment where you've got systems that need to be tied into that ground for anything related to like Cat 6 or telecommunications cable. So it's a good add, I would say. Not something that I would have thought of, but pretty cool to see that we're future proof.
Yeah, and speaking of thought of or forget about forgetting, that's where what Actionable does shows up in our core product. It's great that we produce these videos, but it requires you watch it, memorize it, and apply it. What's happening right now behind the scenes is Fletcher's team is working this new line item into rules associated with low voltage activity. So as you add relative line items for low voltage activities, it's going to say, hey, you might need, this intersystem bonding bridge line item to execute this in a workmanship type manner and so on. And we're going to provide that guidance for you. So, watch the video, memorize all this and apply it, or forget about forgetting and use the actionable profile and the associated actionable alerts. Up to you. All right, back to you again, Fletcher.
I love it. I love it. Next, we've got one last ELE category item here for a meter mast bracing kit for roof. So if you've ever done roofing, messed with meter mast for a lot of electrical, some of them have to have this bracing kit. I can't say I've seen every single one installed with the bracing kit, but there are a vast majority that have it. And now there's a line item for it, which is pretty cool to see. Again, one of those things that you may not always think of, but now we can actually account for that when we're doing things that we're already touching it.
You got it. And this is where claim settlement is improved by the addition of line items like this, because I think I understood you correctly. You guys had rules that were guiding restorers to including a reasonable amount of cost if they needed to brace it, but that would be done more manually with component-based buildup. This now transcends all that, and they just include the bracing kit as warranted, right?
Yep, we're just looking for that now, and now we're good to go.
All right, done deal.
All right, now we have 3 new line items in the EQU category. They've added a mini skid steer loader. So per day, per month, and per week, all 3 no operator. I'm ready to do some joyriding in a mini skid steer. I don't know about you.
I think this makes sense. I remember John Herr going through this at like the 2018 Elevate conference back in the day, but talking about the merits of like pulling out the labor from the skid steer line items or related like heavy equipment. And I think this often makes sense, Fletcher, for how we bill large loss projects. You don't necessarily want the labor associated with that equipment. There's a lot of reasons why the labor and the equipment might deviate. You might have the equipment on site for a week, but you don't necessarily need a human in it every day of that week. And I like this motion towards bifurcating the labor from the equipment itself. Makes sense.
Yeah. I would say another good example would be like with roofing too. Maybe you have or even framing. You have a telehandler on site for some of the stuff, but you're not necessarily using it 8 hours a day, maybe 2 hours a day. So kind of more accurately represents the cost of the equipment versus the cost of the labor. And you can, reflect that, as real time usage rather than just it's all lumped into one line item and you're not sure where you're at.
Agreed.
So next,
what's going on with these furnace repair line items?
Yeah, this was kind of I don't know. It came out of nowhere for me. I didn't see anything last month explaining that we were going to see these, but they've added multiple line items in the HVC category for furnace repair. So you got a blower motor, burner, control board, flame sensor, heat exchanger, igniter, and a limit switch. So I think, especially in the water category or the water environment, emergency loss, there's a lot of projects that I'd been on where loss happened maybe on the second floor or the third floor, went all the way down and the furnace got soaked. Maybe you need a new furnace. Maybe you just needed to do some repairs. Really cool now to see that we've got those options for some of those built in as line items. If we need to account for that cost right away, we can do it through the line items and make sure that we're getting that work taken care of for the customer, sooner rather than later, waiting on a sub to get us a bid, something like that.
Yep. And if you're on the TPA carrier side of the house and you happen to be watching this video, this is how Actionable treats new line items like these furnace repair. To the extent that you use several of these and their cost exceeds or pushes up against the actually just furnace replacement line item, then we advise the user to just go ahead and opt for the all-inclusive replacement line item, in so much as you wouldn't want somebody building up a furnace such that the indemnity cost would accelerate past what just the furnace replacement line item would be. And so this is where we try to strike the individual balances, but probably using all those line items together would be suboptimal. And I trust that Fletcher's team is striking the right balance in the back.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something to consider with that. If you're doing a control board, a heat exchanger, and a blower motor all at the same time, you're kind of already exceeding the cost of just putting in a new furnace, and not to mention some of the liabilities that may occur in a situation like that when you have so many major components to replace on a single furnace.
Agreed.
Next, we have a new line item in the special category, which is detach and reset of a weather vane. So if anybody likes to take the old wind compass, I guess, off of the top of their roof, now you have a detach and reset option for that.
I don't know what the heck to do with that one.
They're not very common. You might see it on a barn quite often.
Yeah.
But not residential. I've seen one home probably in my entire life that had one of these on top of it.
Yeah, and that's coming from you out there in flyover in Montana. So if he hasn't seen it, this San Diego boy hasn't seen it.
To Montana. I've not seen one on a house before.
Yeah, you've seen your fair share of barns, bro. You've seen a couple more barns than I have.
Seen a few barns. So. And lastly, for new line items, we have several new line items in the WTR category. All continuations from last month of removing material with no bagging, Cat 3 after hours variants. So specifically, these ones focus on ceiling tile. And then the last two here are for tackless strip and tackless strip after hours. So both of them for just no bagging. More no bagging line items.
Generally, I feel like no bagging line items are a thumbs down. As we covered last month, but without going into that whole hysterical prognostication, I want to acknowledge that no bagging line items within a commercial environment are more practical. So this remove wet ceiling, provided this is like the suspended ceiling, this makes some sense to me.
Yep,
so
suspended ceiling and stapled ceiling. So this kind of covers both suspended and like the old staple up type.
Yeah. All right. There's that.
It's a great perspective, really. I mean, I think it brings more viability with using Xactimate on a large loss over a lot of the traditional like time and material models. Starting to see more line items that better represent those efficiencies.
Yeah, I'd like the option as a restorer. Bill it T&M. I can always default back to that when Xact breaks down. But to the extent that the price list can mature, to the extent that it can support large loss commercial without moving to the T&M model, that would be my bias.
Yep. Yeah, I would agree. All right, that's it. It's all the new line items. Should we check out the changes?
Let's check them out.
Check them out. Checking out the changes. Okay, starting off with the changes, we have some note/definition field modifications to the solar electric panel line items in the ELS category. So both for up to 200 watt and 250 to 450 watt. I can't not talk today. Modified quality field of replace definition to reference range and wattage. So
Cool.
It talked about it in the description. Now they've just updated it in the quality to talk about the range of wattage. So
That makes sense. I'm glad they did that. Well, I remember writing rules around solar, and I was like, is this because it's a smaller panel or a larger panel? I didn't know what was driving the variable. So to communicate now that it's wattage, that helps. I dig that change. Cool.
Yep.
What else we got?
Next, we've got a change to the descriptions behind the residential supervision project manager or project management per hour line item. So what do you think about this?
Jump over to the claim info labor efficiency drop down field. Would you mind?
Yep. I think it's in parameters. Yep.
Yeah, this new labor efficiency drop down. I think this new clarification relates to this drop down, folks, labor efficiency. I'm going to speculate here a bit, but I know that the labor efficiency drop down for large loss, which is large restoration / remodel or total rebuild, in the labor efficiency and design white paper, which is linked out at getinsights.org. Should put that link down in the caption down below. But that white paper calls out specifically that both total rebuild and large restoration projects might warrant labor being applied separately and distinctly if these labor efficiencies models were to be applied. So jumping back to the new updates within the published price list, this language, I think, is smoothing the way for restorers to include additional project management hours should that be warranted, pursuant to the labor efficiency and design white paper. But also calling out like this multifamily from commercial. And so let me clarify that, Fletcher. Like multifamily, it's often thought of as commercial, but it's often estimated as residential. When you've got a duplex or a fourplex, a lot of time that still falls in like the residential world. It's not a full-on apartment building, which is totally implied that's commercial. And so I think what's going on with this additional item information change and the modification to the notes field is trying to separate, commercial from residential and defining where those overlaps may or may not exist. But y'all take that with a grain of salt. I'm not 100% sure about all that, but I think that's where this is coming from. Fletcher, does that fit in your head?
I think it fits in my head, yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's good to see clarifications. I mean, you can only hope stuff like this helps to remove some contention in the industry and make things more clear to both sides of the picnic table.
Yeah, I think and it's getting to the full time, because on a commercial loss, like say you're drying down and you've got desiccant trailer mounted desiccants outside and you've got 30 to 90 kilowatt generators running, you need like a full-time porter to run that. That's what that's implying for a commercial job, but you wouldn't see 24/7 project management on residential. So I think that's what they're dabbling around the edges of.
Yep. Yeah, I would agree. So we'll see. Next, we have a change to the chimney flue pipe mast roof bracing kit detach and reset line item. So there's actually some yield changes on this that I didn't find until I checked the old price list. So I compared June to July, and I wouldn't have known that this changed in price if I didn't do that, because it wasn't really listed in the monthly price list summary. So modified description of replace assembly and replace definition to include electrical mast roof bracing kits and assumptions for roofing cement. So we have the new line item for the meter mast roof bracing kit, and now the chimney flue pipe mast roof bracing kit detach and reset line item has been adjusted to account for that. So kind of cool to see. Price actually went up quite a bit. So the yield went from 8 to 2.5, which resulted in about a 69% decrease in yield. So just for the labor.
And for those of you, this is your first time tuning in, when there is a decrease in yield, there's an increase in price, and that they have an inverse relationship. So you could read that and at first glance go, decrease in my labor yield. Nothing around here is decreasing. True. Actually, when there's a decrease in yield, the price goes up.
Well, it's just all around efficiency. If the yield is lower, it means you're doing it slower.
Yep, you got it.
All right. Now, next kind of minor change, but cool, just from a, I guess, efficiency standpoint, when you are estimating for a roof, the step flashing line items have a default calculation of step flash built into them now. So whenever you populate that line item, it automatically has step flash in the calculation field. But just kind of a minor housekeeping thing there. I think that was cool to highlight.
Well, the real housekeeping thing is if you don't add your roofs correctly, graphically in Sketch, with having a primary roof and then your sub roofs, which kind of work like sub rooms, then your flashing is not going to work. And so that variable is not going to do squat but throw a 0 value. So you make sure that you are establishing hierarchy between your roofs if you want that variable to actually throw off any quantity that would make sense to the roof that you built.
Yep. Yeah, it is important to have the subroofs. Okay, next, de-icing cable. So added text to the note field of replace definition to clarify intent of line item. So talking more about what the purpose of de-icing cable is. Anyone not in a cold environment, probably not really too familiar with it, but essentially it's like an extension cord in a way that you wrap around the eaves of your roof to keep them from freezing and getting ice dams.
Do you include de-icing cables in concert with ice and water shield barrier?
It's some homes have it permanently installed. Some people just put it on their roof over the winter.
What do you mean?
Oh.
Put what on these de-icing cable?
Yeah. Because a lot of people, here in Montana, especially, a lot of people put it on their roofs for the winter. They'll put it through their gutters, down their downspouts for the winter. So you're
what
not
a hassle. And they're doing that annually?
Either annually or it's permanently installed. It can be rather destructive to your roof in either case, but also the cable is pretty susceptible to the UV rays and stuff. So over time, it's you're replacing it fairly frequently.
Or you can just move to San Diego and then you don't have to winterize anything. Not your car, not your barbecue, not your outside refrigerator, and not your roof. Because I've never contemplated any of these things because it's 73 degrees here every day. I digress. Let's move on.
Yep, but that's what it is. So if you live in a cold environment, now you have more clarification to the intent behind those line items.
More weather vane. All right, I can't do it.
More weather vane. All they did was the existing ones now have the activity bar, so you can do detach and reset since they added the line item as well.
Yeah.
Moving to yield and supporting event adjustments. So for the cove-based molding, no bagging line items that they added, they modified description, labor component yield, and excluded definition to clarify item is for tearing out material up to category 3 and excludes bagging. So they're just making it clear to the existing cove-based line items that it's for up to category 3. So
this is saying, this is category 1, 2, and 3.
Yes. Yeah. Which the existing tear out cove baseline items already were. It's just the no bagging variants now clarify that directly rather than previously it seems like they didn't do that.
Because there's no difference in labor between removing a vinyl code base in a Cat 1 versus a Cat 3 environment because the building material is not porous.
Yeah. And I mean, it ultimately it's just other than the material being grossly contaminated, it's the same process to remove it.
I'm inclined to agree to some extent or another. But if I have my teams working in a Cat 3 environment, Fletcher, they're in full PPEs. Everything you're trying to do in full PPE slows you down. I don't give a crap what it is. Go try to smoke a cigarette in PPEs. Good luck, dude. I'll see you in 20 minutes. It slows you down. And I'm not sure I can get down with Cat 3 demolition being the same as Cat 1 due to the PPE factor.
Yeah.
Well, that's just one man's opinion, and there's no such thing as a perfect line item. Okay, so we'll take it. Sure. Update. Got it. Code base.
There you go. Update. Next, modified labor component yield in the removal assembly for various WTR category line items. So for all of these, they saw a increase in yield. So the labor yield went from 166.5 to 181.6, which is about a 9% increase. And that's kind of across the board. Most of them were around 9 to 12%. And then there was 2 that were right around a 20% increase. And like we just talked about, the increase in yield means the price goes down. So all of these saw a slight price reduction here in July from where they were at in June. And that is for, again, Cove Base, both the bagging and no bagging variants, and then tearing out tackless strip and bag for disposal. Those are the ones that we saw those yield changes on.
All right.
That's great. It for changes.
Yeah, a lot went down.
Yeah. It was a surprising month for me. Considering what we saw last month and kind of the upcoming and what we actually got, there was a lot that either was released as a new line item that I wasn't expecting or a change that I wasn't really expecting, excuse me. So it was a good month.
Well, right on. Well, folks, I think our job here is done. Now it's up to you. Keep building.
Yep. Stay humble.